I can imagine a situation, though, in which the ruling elite of a country is receiving gratuities on the side that inure to the benefit of the strongman leader and not to the populace of the country. Does that sort of corruption and bribery go on with regard to the Belt and Road?
Absolutely, Chairman.
Sometimes in life, you have to pick your battles. Not every confrontation is worth your time or energy. Knowing when to engage and when to walk away can make all the difference. Fellas, let me tell you something real quick. You know how people always say, ignore the haters, right? It's a common piece of advice, like when someone's talking trash about you, don't respond. Just keep moving forward, because the moment you respond, it can look like you're validating them, like what they said actually got to you. And I agree, to a point. Some people, they're irrelevant. They add no value to your life. Responding to them gives them fuel, more power than they deserve. They get excited, oh, he replied to me. I must have hit a nerve. They feel important. And boom, they think they matter now. They think they have some control over you. You just gave them leverage they didn't deserve. So, stay focused and keep moving. But then, there's another category of critics, the ones who think they're smart and always have something to say. These are the people who speak from a place of perceived intellect or authority, often trying to dominate the conversation. And for those people, silence isn't always golden. Sometimes, it's necessary to speak up. When you've got strong principles, values, and facts behind you, sometimes you've got to respond, not with insults, but with sharp, well-aimed truth. Hit them with irony, with wit and precision. Make them feel it without ever stooping low, maintaining your integrity and composure. In the case of Burkina Faso versus the US general, the stakes were high. It wasn't just about words, it was about principles and sovereignty. When faced with such a challenge, knowing how to respond becomes crucial. It's not about aggression, but about standing firm with dignity and wisdom. Now let's get to the real matter at hand. The government of Burkina Faso just called out US General Michael Langley, the head of AFRICOM, the US Africa Command, in a bold move. Why? Because the general made a claim before the US Senate saying that Burkina Faso's partnership with Russia is hurting the interests of its own people and undermining regional stability. The Burkinabe government, they weren't having it. They saw it as an affront to their sovereignty. They came out strong and said those comments were unjustified, politically biased, and completely out of line with diplomatic norms. Langley basically implied that Burkina Faso's ties with Russia and China are damaging to the country's future. But here's the question. Who knows what's best for Burkina Faso, the Burkinabe people, or a foreign general thousands of miles away? Let's break it down. Imagine you have kids. Sure, someone else might have opinions about how to raise them, maybe even good ones, but do they love your children more than you do? Should you give your kids over to someone else because they say they know better? Of course not. You raise your kids. You make your mistakes. You grow. Same thing here. Langley's basically saying, hey, your dad's not working in your best interest while standing outside your house. That's disrespect. That's overstepping. During that Senate hearing, Langley also expressed concerns over Russia's increasing presence in Africa, especially groups like Wagner. He warned about long-term instability, but let's not pretend this is about power and influence. Burkina Faso chose to kick out the French. Why? Because the French had been there for decades, supposedly helping with counterterrorism, and yet the violence continued. So Burkina said, you know what, we're done. Let's try something else. And now, they're being told they can't work with Russia or China? Why not? Aren't they a sovereign nation? Is independence only acceptable when it aligns with Western interests? The Burkina Faso government also reminded the world of what they've achieved since changing partners' agriculture, booming. They've launched local processing plants for things like tomatoes, no more sending raw produce to France to get canned and resold at a higher price. Education, new schools, universities, labs, they've even got microscopes now, stuff students used to cross borders to use. Healthcare, new hospitals, better access. Security, stronger than ever. And let's not forget Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the leader of Burkina Faso. The man refused a presidential salary, said, "Just pay me as a captain, put my presidential salary into a national fund." That fund is now helping the country build roads, schools, plants, and buy equipment. That's leadership. VDP, the People's Defense. Burkina Faso also introduced something called the VDP, Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland. These are young men, tired of waiting for help, tired of seeing their communities attacked. So what did they do? They trained. They armed themselves. They joined the fight, not as soldiers, but as citizens defending their home with government support. Compare that to Congo, where unfortunately the disconnect is real. While conflict rages in regions like Ituri and Goma, folks in Kinshasa are partying like there's no war. Concerts every weekend, stadiums packed. The war feels far away, so it's ignored. But in Burkina Faso, everyone's involved. No one's just shaking their ass and pretending life is fine. The people are conscious, committed, and ready to sacrifice for their land. Sovereignty and mutual respect are the cornerstones of international relations. Every nation, regardless of its size or power, deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. Upholding these principles fosters a more just and peaceful world. In closing, Burkina Faso issued a strong but respectful message to the United States and its allies: respect our sovereignty. If you have concerns, go through the proper diplomatic channels. Don't sit in your Senate and talk down to us. Burkina Faso isn't asking for handouts. They're asking for equality, for the freedom to choose their own path, even if it means working with Russia or China. Isn't that what independence is all about? Let me leave you with this. We all know that this global game, USA, China, Russia, it's about influence. Africa is the chessboard, and everyone wants control. But African countries are waking up. They're choosing for themselves. And the world's got to learn one thing real quick: you can't love our people more than we do. So let us choose our own way and respect it. God bless.